I got a video request from a subscriber by the name of Abigail. She wrote in via email to me from my blog, just saying that she found me a few months ago, really likes my videos on YouTube, and she asked a question. She wanted me to do a video on modern relationships. She wants to know how the modern world has changed the way young people communicate in terms of dating. She says, "It's something that I've noticed in today's society. I can't help but feel we are losing personal connections, and instead people just would rather be alone than in actual relationships, and I fear that the idea of marriage will disappear." And then she says, "Thanks for listening." So I appreciate you for writing in and being a positive subscriber who likes my stuff. Now, this is a bit outside of my typical video topics of personal development and improving your health, wealth, relationships, and happiness. However, it definitely does touch on relationships, love, happiness, as well as, believe it or not, a lot of evolutionary biology behind how we're wired and what social bonds make us happy. So, real quick, I just kind of want to touch on the significance of this topic because I think it goes deeper than most people think. So why would someone care about social connections going away and that we're losing these things? Well, it matters for our own health and mental health and happiness, as well as for how we function in this world, and that will affect how much money we earn, how happy we are, and how successful we are as a whole. So it definitely relates. Still a bit outside of the realms of what I do talk about, but the first thing is that marriage is not going away. We're having more children statistically than ever before. We're exponentially increasing as a whole as a world population. So in general, humans are doing really well as a species in terms of surviving and reproducing. We're dominating all these different climates and harsh conditions that most people have trouble in. So we are not going to be stopped mating anytime soon or having marriage anytime soon. Just because we are locked away more on our own, on our computers, in our rooms, doesn't mean that people will stop having marriage. People are constantly getting married, dating, and so on and so forth. And just because, certain things like technology and society encourage us at times to spend more time alone, doesn't necessarily mean that we don't have a urgency and desire to go and meet people and continue getting married and getting dates. Now, you are right to say that this does actually have some effect on how we do things. The thing is, with modern society, technology and how we organize and systematize the world has, in certain definitely been more efficient in certain ways. Like, it's awesome that certain things like cities came about, because now you can get to places faster. There's a gym nearby, and then there's a restaurant nearby, and a laundromat. And business is easier to find because everyone's clumped in one space, and you get more customers for your restaurant, and so on and so forth. But there's also downsides, unexpected downsides to this. And modern society is creating all sorts of these because we are changing so quickly, much faster than humans or most mammalian animals can naturally evolve at. So this is called the Savannah Principle, and there's a bunch of evolutionary problems with this. One of the most obvious would be our massive intake of fat and sugar, something that used to be a scarce resource, but all of a sudden, thanks to farming and other technological developments, now we have all this candy for so cheap at the grocery store, and all sorts of other junk food from fast food restaurants, more than we could get in the past. But we're still wired to like gorge and binge on this stuff because our genetics are telling us that this is a rare thing, and then if we don't have it, we're going to starve. But that's not true in modern society anymore, and our genes can't tell otherwise. So how does this actually play out when it comes to modern dating and relationships and marriage? Now, of course, I see it all the time. I'm sure you do as well. If you just look around, plenty of people are still succeeding and thriving while they're dating, but a lot of them are not anymore. So to go so extreme as to say that, oh, this is the end of dating and marriage is completely preposterous in my opinion, because if you just look around, there's definitely always couples or people who maybe everyone's jealous of, who just have the perfect boyfriend or girlfriend, or they're just killing it in the dating world. I'm a big fan of the CrossFit industry, which is huge on Instagram, and they're just having a blast. All of them have no problem finding dates, probably because they're all muscular and they spend so much time outdoors and they're meeting people and they look so well physically that it's like a no-brainer for them to talk. And because they're such outdoorsy people, they're naturally good with social skills, and everything's just downhill from there. They're mentally healthy and they're funny and all this stuff, and they have no problem. But that's a bit of a minority. I would say a lot of us, especially people watching YouTube videos, are likely people who prefer staying indoors. They have less friends. They spend a lot of time on their computers, like me. They like video games, like me, and so on and so forth. So because of all these new things that keep us inside, it's kind of wrecking things, because in the past, there was much less addictive stuff that would give us reasons to just stay locked alone in our room, staring at a screen or doing close to nothing. But now we're bombarded with stuff that will do this because it's entertaining or informative, whether it's Netflix or Hulu or video games or anything on a computer, really, programming and so forth. So I don't think it will destroy marriage, but it has and will continue to affect how social we naturally are. And for introverts and shy people like us who are anxious or have anxiety with social situations to begin with, because we weren't the most popular, or we have all these reasons or insecurities as to why we might get rejected, it just further motivates and incentivizes us to kind of just stay inside. So it is a huge problem, and we have to kind of break out of our shell. And my recommendation for people like that is to do it slowly over time. Don't just, jump out of the gate and try and become the most extroverted person you are and go to 4 events at bars and stuff and networking events every day. That's too much of a shock for your system and might just traumatize you. So maybe just do one tiny thing a week, maybe 2 events, then move it up to 3 and so on, and then try and make it fun. So choose events that are a mixture of getting out of your comfort zone, meeting the people that you want to meet, as well as having fun. So that way you don't burn out, that way it's not a chore, and that way your anxiety doesn't hit an all-time high. I've used this myself to go to many social events, from entrepreneurial networking events to social media summits like Vid Summit, to professional development events, to sports leagues like kickball league, and bocce league, and cornhole league. It has helped me go to all sorts of different stuff. Dance classes, Latin dance classes, ballroom, tango, Lindy Hop, and a lot of other things. And you might think well, how do you do all this stuff? How do you have time for Toastmasters and all this? And when you clump it all together, it looks like a lot. But when you break it into parts, it's actually it's much less broken apart. So I would only do 1 event a week, or 1 event a month. And I've lived a long life, so by the end of the year, even if you only do 1 event a month, by the end of the year it can look like a lot when you list it all out. So you throw in a Pilates class and a yoga class every other week, and a dance class every month. and you just do one drop-in, or you never return, or you do 2 or 3, or you do return every week or day like I do with CrossFit, it does add up. So that's me, and I would say I'm very shy and I have a lot of anxiety, yet I have been able to achieve a good amount of social activities, maybe even more than the average person, but much less than the person who's constantly going to events every day. But it just goes to show you that it can be done, and by doing that, it's probably the best way of actually meeting people, whether we're in dating or outside of dating. Once you get to a comfortable level, you can get even more strategic and start thinking about what you have to offer, and then what the other party has to offer, and just go to the places that the people you would like to meet are at, and then preferably the places, and go after the places and people that would actually find what you have to offer valuable. So I'm going to use myself as an example. My strengths are that I am kind of nerdy and smart. My weaknesses are that I'm not the most charismatic person or the most physically muscular or jacked yet. Now, of course, maybe I like a girl who is into a fit lifestyle and smart and ambitious. Well, these types of people may not be into what I have to offer, but maybe a subsection of them are. Maybe the people who are into the scientific literature of fitness. So perhaps a fitness/science themed lecture event may be better for me to go to, because it's a win-win situation. Both parties are looking for what the other has, and that's just an example I pulled off the top of my head. And there's plenty of dating coaches out there who can probably go into more detail about advice and talk about how sometimes if it's an attractive girl, they're not going to be looking, so you have to make the first move because they already have options, or at least you have to make them aware that you're interested. But that's for another day. Go ahead and search on YouTube or the internet for more details on that. I just generally want to cover the topic of modern relationships, and marriage is not going away anytime soon. In fact, once you get to my age, which is mid-20s, and you go on your Facebook feed, or you just look on social media or keep in touch with people, everyone you'll hear about or see, or that you knew, your classmates, they'll be getting married. That's what I'm experiencing now. It's kind of annoying, to be honest, when you're on Facebook and everyone's just like, almost every week someone else is getting married. So marriage is clearly not going away. Your perception of it might seem like it is because maybe you live in a very closed off environment. You're not looking at the greater picture. So keep that in mind, and I think it will really put you very far. I just kind of want to address the final part of this question and call it a day. So you said, how has the modern world changed the way young people communicate? I can't help but feel we are losing personal connections, and instead people would rather be alone than in actual relationships. So again, I already addressed the fact that a lot of people are searching for relationships. They still are, they still will, and that's because it is one of the strongest, biggest primary genetic drivers. Survive, reproduce. And for the second one, reproduce, this is like a key part of it. You have to meet people and so forth. Now, what I want to address spot on, and I think you're completely right, is that you said, I can't help but feel we're losing personal connections. And I think that is true. If I had to guess, my theory is that on average, most people in modern first world countries have less personal connections than they did a few decades ago, let alone a few centuries ago. And that is because of all the stuff I mentioned with computers and addictive social media and all these things that are taking us away from that. Now, I don't give a crap what social media experts like Gary Vaynerchuk has to say about how, social media is actually, bringing us closer together and blah, blah, blah. And yes, I do think that we are truly social animals. There's a great book by Matt Lieberman called Social, on the topic of how we are the most social animal, and that is why we are so smart and effective as a species. And I'm a hugest Gary Vaynerchuk fan. I mean, I've listened to and watched most of his YouTube videos, and you know how much content he puts out, so that's saying a lot. Read all his books, and there's a lot I agree with, but I have to just stand up for once and say one thing I don't agree with respectfully. And I disagree with this idea that he keeps promoting, which is that like social media is so good and like there's nothing but good that can happen from it, and that and, you know, it's such an amazing thing, and it makes people more social and all this stuff. I honestly think he's only saying that to get attention and be controversial for the sake of getting attention, rather as a pursuit of the truth. And I'm more of a guy who is scientific and pursues the truth. So I respectfully, unless convinced otherwise, disagree with him. And I believe that we are growing farther apart in many ways due to social media. Of course, there's a subsection of really popular girls who are very attractive in high school and college that I've seen. And yes, for those types of people, I've seen how social media, Facebook, Snapchat, in real time has helped them communicate and stay in touch and connect and express on a deeper and faster level with their friends and family. Like a lot of girls of the millennial generation, my generation, they've told this to me, they will talk, specifically text their mothers like almost every day, even though they have full-time jobs and work and live like miles away, sometimes half a country away. However, outside that subsect, well, when you look at a good portion of people, a lot of them have kind of lost a bit of a social touch and use social media or the internet as like a crutch or just a substitute, sometimes unfulfilling substitute. I've been there myself, as a nerd who's not super popular or super handsome or any of that stuff. I've kind of logged a lot of time to social media, tens of thousands of hours. I've watched tens of thousands of YouTube videos alone. Don't get me started on Instagram or any of the other platforms. And I've seen how it's just kind of like sucks your time, and you still feel a bit empty because you feel like you've never actually, of all that time, you barely have talked to real people, and you wish you could have just like talked to real people rather than spend all this time there. Now that's a bit of an extreme example, and again, it can be fixed by just consciously being aware of this and like taking some time to spend outside. Now there's tons of benefits to social media, but there's also weaknesses to it too, the addictiveness factor and what I've mentioned. So, and I'm not just blaming social media in general. There's a lot of other things that have causing this. The structure of certain suburbs and towns have made it so that you don't have the tribe-like town experience that we did as cowboys back in the day, or if you go back far enough, as hunter-gatherers, or as just small town folk people that most of the world, most of these second and third world countries still have, but we have forsaken. And what that causes is that we completely lack, and again, the book Social really goes into detail about this. We have completely destroyed, not completely, being a bit extreme, but we've, for the most part, destroyed the natural ability for us to kind of walk through a town on a day-to-day basis and know everyone on facial level, say hi to them, and then spend time with the town, connecting with these people and socializing with them. It's easy, whether you're in the UK right now or you are in the US or Australia, it's easy to just be segmented because you have to drive from your house to McDonald's. You have to drive from your house to Dick's Sporting Goods or Macy's or JCPenney or Target or Walmart. The problem with this is that it puts you into an incentive-based system where if you don't realize it, you're only going and meeting other people and socializing and forming strong connections and relationships and communication with them when you bump into them, which is close to never, because you're only going to places for specific reasons, oftentimes not related to socializing, like food, like buying video games, like going to the toilet, like going to the post office. And so it's very easy for you to stay in your room and do nothing. Now, of course, there's tons of movements out there, and tons of YouTube channels and influencers who teach how to fix this, and it's not hard, it's not rocket science. Charisma on Command is a YouTube channel with 1 million plus subscribers, and like many social skills channels, the first thing they tell you is just like you have to first consciously be aware of this, and then second, start going out and actually talking to people and socializing and forming these bonds with them. And I think from my own observations and awareness of this, I know that most people still don't do this and they're not aware of this. When I make a conscious effort to really connect and talk to people at a event, whether it's a CrossFit event or something else, many of them are there kind of just going through the motions. They're there to do the workout and then go home. And everything's kind of like really goal-oriented, and they forget about the goal of socializing, connecting, and building strong bonds. So if you understand that, you're way ahead of the pack. Social by Matt Lieberman, as well as the book The Happiness Advantage by Sean Aker. There's a few other books that talk about this, like Before Happiness. They go into detail, and they point out specific scientific studies that show the effect of strong relationships and bonds with your well-being and happiness. So it's important, and most people don't invest in it. Of course, there's that subsection of people I've mentioned who just naturally do it, unconsciously or consciously. They're like, I got to go out and join an intramural soccer league, or I got to go out and party. And they just naturally meet people and have connections, and it's never a problem for them. But that's not the case for a lot of people, and then they wake up and there's a problem. So thanks for watching. Send me your questions. If they're good, I might answer them, especially if you're polite. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you. See you.